Hello, I'm Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and I am here to talk today about naps, nap transitions, and what to do when you have to stretch your child's wake times and how to do that easily and effectively without causing other nighttime sleep disruptions. So I just wanted to kind of start with just a couple of basics, just so that we're making sure we're all on the same page when we're talking about naps, because there's so many important things to consider. So for today's kind of training on naps, what I want to preface is that uh, I'm making the assumption that your child is I'm making the assumption that your child is already night trained, meaning that your child already has their sleep skills of learning how to self-regulate, self-settle, and self-soothe at the onset of sleep at bedtime with no sleep crutches, that they're able to do that independently, and that they are able to help themselves soothe back to sleep in the middle of the night on the non-nursing arousals. Of course, if you're still nursing in the middle of the night, that's amazing and fabulous. So that's not a problem. So I just want to preface that's kind of our starting point, is that your child is already has gained their sleep skills for nighttime. Okay, so then we kind of move into what happens during naps. So the first foundational thing you need to know is that most babies will take 3 naps a day until they are 9 to 10 months of age. And usually that third nap is what we call a power nap. That nap will tend to be a shorter nap. It is a nap where we will often use sleep crutches to help our babies go to sleep and stay asleep for that last nap. That last nap can be fine if it's in the car, in the infant carrier, and it's fine if that nap that the child like sleeps from like 4:30 to 5, something like that. Totally fine. So that 3 nap schedule can be wonderful for many families, and it really sets the child up for good nighttime sleep if they are young babies like that and they've had as close to 3 hours of daytime sleep as possible, totaling throughout those 3 naps. Okay, so usually they drop that third nap somewhere between 9 and 10 months of age. Some babies will do it earlier, some babies will do it later, but the average is 9 to 10 months of age. Now, when you go into that child trying to drop that third nap, it really creates some friction, because the child will start to nap skip that third nap and they will be super exhausted and cranky going into bedtime. And then, of course, that creates bedtime drama. It also can cause middle of the night arousals. And also, that nap skipping behavior can cause early rising behaviors where they're waking up somewhere between 4 and 6 a.m. wanting your assistance. So whenever we're looking at a nap dropping scenario, we're always looking to minimize the triggers that are going to cause other sleep dilemmas. Okay, so that's kind of the first transition I want to talk about. The second transition that happens is when they go from they're already established a 2 nap schedule, and they typically do a 2 nap schedule from about 9 months all the way until anywhere between 15 and 18 months. So there's this nice long chunk when your child is on a 2 nap schedule from 9 months to about 15 months. Sometimes they stretch it as long as 18 months, which is great. I love the 2 nap schedule because your child can get up in the morning. They're usually awake 3 hours-ish. They go down for a nap. They sleep an hour-ish. They wake up. They've got a nice, approximately a 3-hour interval between nap 1 and nap 2. They take another nice nap in the afternoon. And then there's usually a 4 to 5 hour interval between nap 2 and when they're asleep at bedtime. That's a beautiful schedule. And again, that's can happen between 9 months and 15 to 18 months as well. They will drop that extra nap and they will go down to 1 nap a day. Okay, so now we're at 1 nap a day. What are the expectations there? 1 nap a day typically is the child could start as early as 15 months, and usually children will continue with nap until 3.5, sometimes as late as 5 years of age. So I know that sometimes a lot of moms will say to me, well, I think my 3-year-old's grown out of naps. Sometimes what they'll do around 3 is do a lot of nap skipping, but we will always want to offer the opportunity for a rest period, because sometimes if you look at a 7-day work week, maybe they'll still only nap like 3 days a week, but they're still napping, which is great. So that time frame when they're on a 1 nap a day schedule, it can also be really wonderful. They wake up in the morning. There's usually like a 5 to 6 hour interval from the time they wake up in the morning to the time they're asleep for the one and only nap is a 5 to 6 hour interval. And then they'll sleep for anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours, which is gorgeous to have a beautiful, quiet, calm house in the middle of the day. And then when they wake up from that nap, there's usually, again, a 4 to 5 hour interval between when they woke up from nap and when they're asleep at bedtime. Also, wonderful time for families to do activities on the front of before nap starts and after nap ends, especially now that we're going back into getting longer daylight. That's really wonderful. Now, what happens when we're dropping these naps, we're in these in-between nap transitions when, for example, they're trying to drop down to 1 nap, you get into this no man's land where, in this case, 2 naps is too much and 1 nap is not enough. And this can be really difficult on families because they have a child that's very cranky, often clingy. It's, again, like I mentioned, it can cause bedtime battles and protesting. It can cause unusual arousals in the middle of the night. So when you know you're in the beginning of one of these nap transitions, it's really important to just take a deep breath and realize that it's going to be a little bumpy. You're going to go into this no man's land, and that's normal. But what we need to do is come up with some strategies around how to make it a little bit easier on everyone. So the first thing that you can do when a child is dropping a nap is, obviously, bedtime is going to become earlier. Okay. As I mentioned earlier in this conversation, I gave you intervals between from the time they woke up from their second or third nap or only nap, what the interval is until the time needs to be asleep at bedtime. Not getting ready for sleep, but being like already asleep. So paying attention to that. Oftentimes, if they aren't sleeping as much during the day, they absolutely want to go to bed a lot earlier, and they will often end up sleeping longer in the nighttime, which is great. So these are times when a family will call me and say, oh my gosh, my child used to only sleep 11 hours at night, and I was so excited about that. But now that they have nap dropping, they're now sleeping 11 and a half hours or 11 and 40, almost 12 hours at night. And that's fantastic. Okay, so move the bedtime earlier for sure. Now, the other thing that you can start to do is nudge where the nap is landing. So, for example, with this transition, when you had to drop, it was a 2-nap transition, you had 2 naps and you're going down to 1 nap. Oftentimes, families will drop the morning nap. And in doing so, they have to very strategically try to stretch the child's resilience to stay up longer in order to have 1 nap be placed in the middle of the day. So in order to stretch them, you kind of do something like this. If their nap used to be at 9:30 a.m. and you know that they're starting to nap skip it, you would try to bump it to 9:45 or even 10 o'clock and do that for 2 to 3 days and see how the child tolerates it. If they tolerate it well, then you bump it again by 15 or 20 minutes, and you do that for 2 to 3 days. And if they continue to tolerate that, then you might bump it to like 11 a.m. and do that for 2 or 3 days. when you kind of get to that perfect time when you can tell the child still goes to sleep easily and takes a nice solid nap, then you know that you've moved them to the right new schedule. Now, of course, that bedtime will probably still be moved back a little bit to help them. But that's a way that you can, drop the front end of the nap and push them to get them to stay awake long enough, but not like try to push them all the way to 12 noon, because sometimes kids just can't do that. So we have to go in these small 15 or 20-minute pushes, stay steady on that for 2 to 3 days, see how they tolerate it, and then push it again, see how they tolerate it, and then push them again. And so as you can see here, when a child is going through nap transitions, we as parents kind of have to go into kind of a strategic plan, because if we go willy-nilly, then we're going to end up creating more stress for ourselves, and we're going to probably by accident be not paying attention to the cues of the child to be able to accommodate that situation where the previous naps was too much sleep and dropping nap was too little sleep. Okay. And so, to make a nap transition can take about 2 to 3 weeks, where the child is finally able to move to the new schedule. And so for some families that are in daycare, if they are in a baby room and they're being moved to the toddler room, families have to plan ahead and prepare that child to be ready for that new schedule that's coming. And so this is another reason why understanding where the natural transition points are and when children drop naps becomes important. And it's important to understand and be realistic. It can take 2 to 3 weeks of actively working on helping the child make that transition. So that when they get on that new schedule, life is easier and you didn't end up causing a lot of nighttime sleep disruption, because that's what I hear a lot. I get a lot of urgent calls from families that ended up in a nighttime sleep regression. And when we start looking at the causes of what triggered the regression, it's many times it is a nap transition trigger point, that they didn't treat the nap transition they weren't mindful enough about the nap transition, and the child got overtired and overstimulated at bedtime and started protesting a lot. And so then the parents by accident would go in and start offering sleep crutches at nighttime, and then they ended up in a regression all triggered by how they were handling the naps. Okay. So I just want you to think about that. I'm going to put here in the chat a really great ages and stages sleep chart that can be really helpful for you to be able to see really clearly the age of your child, how much daytime sleep is required, how much nighttime sleep is required, and you're able to see also those sleep intervals that I mentioned that were probably hard for you to take notes on or to keep in your mind, those wakefulness intervals, so that you can start thinking ahead. Like if you have an 8-month-old, then you might want to be saying to yourself, okay, I know in the next 2 months, I'm going to start seeing signs where my 8-month-old is going to be starting to nap skip that power nap. And I need to start thinking about what I want that new schedule to look like. And I can start actively nudging my child in that way so that nap transition goes really well, so that we don't destroy any of our wonderful progress that we've made on nighttime. Because again, that's why I started this conversation about, I'm assuming that you've already night trained your baby and your baby is sleeping beautifully at night. And I don't want any family to have to experience a nighttime sleep regression that was caused from daytime nap transitions where they got blindsided by the normal things that happen around that transition. Okay, so I'm going to post this here, so feel free to go grab that and download that for yourself. And any of you that are watching this at a later date, if you have any questions, all you have to do is, type in hashtag replay, and ask your question, and I will pop back into the comments and answer it. And any of you that are in the middle of a nap transition and there has become some sleep regressions and you're like, oh no, what do I do? Not a problem. You can always reach out to me and make an appointment to speak to me to help you do some brainstorming and problem solving around any kind of regression behavior. And then, of course, if your child is really having a hard time and you're finding that your child isn't sleeping well at night, nor are they sleeping well during the day, then of course, we can absolutely have a more detailed conversation about how to help you solve that. And I'm going to put that link in here right now as well, so that if you are in a situation where you need to talk live to somebody about your unique situation, at least you have a reliable resource to go to. I'm putting that right in there as well. So thank you so much for being here, and I will be here next Wednesday at 3 p.m. And if you have any questions if you want me to hot seat coach you, I can absolutely do that as well. And so in fact, I'll put this here in the link as well. You can submit questions in advance, and I will study. You fill out a form and I will study your situation. I will literally come to the Facebook Live prepared to help you and give you as much information as I possibly can based on the information that you shared. And that information, that link is coming through right now. So if anyone has any questions right now, I can stay on for a couple more minutes, or I'll just wait for you to reach out to me individually. And thank you for listening to me and everything about nap transitions. Have a great day.